In the heart of Western Australia's north lies a special but lethal place, the ghost town of Whitn.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for locations on Earth that have been abandoned, significantly altered, or destroyed thanks to human activity or natural occurrences.
It all began back in May 1962, when local officials unwittingly sparked an underground fire.
Number 10. Pitcher, Oklahoma. For half a century, the town of Pitcher, Oklahoma was one of the United States' leading producers of lead and zinc.
Pitcher was at the epicenter of the metal mining boom, becoming the largest exporter of lead and zinc in the world.
As a result of minimal oversight, the mining operations literally undermined the foundations of the town. Toxic piles of waste were left all over the area, some of which found its way into children's sandboxes. In 1983, the EPA included Pitcher as part of its massive Tar Creek Superfund site.
When mining stopped in the 70s, the Environmental Protection Agency declared Pitcher a Superfund site, a name given to areas so polluted they're placed on the national priority list for cleanup.
Federal and state efforts to mitigate the damage didn't work, and by 1994, one-third of Pitcher's children had lead poisoning. A mandatory evacuation was put into effect, with the 2008 tornado accelerating the town's demise. As of January 2011, only 6 homes and 1 business remained, the residents too stubborn to leave.
Even though the town is gone, the hometown is still here.
Everybody comes back to Pitcher. They was born here, or raised here, or lived here.
Number 9. Tomb of Mausolus, Turkey. Over the centuries, each of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, with the notable exception of the Great Pyramid at Giza, were lost to the sands of time. One of the last to fall was the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, or the Tomb of Mausolus. It was built around 350 BCE in modern-day Turkey. The Great Tomb stood for hundreds of years, surviving both the invasion of Alexander the Great and 2 separate pirate attacks. By 1404, thanks to a series of powerful earthquakes, only the base of the tomb remained. In 1494, an order of Crusader knights used the stones of the tomb to fortify their castle walls. Number 8. Gilman, Colorado. Once a booming zinc and lead mining town, Gilman, Colorado is now the site of one of the worst ecological disasters in U.S. mining history. The mining operations poisoned the soil and groundwater with arsenic, cadmium, copper, lead, and zinc. The ecology of the nearby Eagle River was decimated, and the residents of Gilman were horribly exposed. In 1984, the EPA deemed the town uninhabitable and designated it a Superfund site. The town was completely evacuated and abandoned, and cleanup efforts began. Some progress has been made, as one section of the area was taken off the Superfund list in 2023. Gilman, however, was never repopulated and is now a ghost town. Number 7. Lighthouse of Alexandria, Egypt. King Ptolemy I commissioned the construction of the Great Lighthouse at Alexandria in the 3rd century BCE, and it was finished some years later by his son. Built out of limestone and granite, it had a furnace at the top to provide light to sailors at sea. The lighthouse stood for over 1,000 years before it was damaged by a series of earthquakes. After a powerful quake in 956, the lighthouse was repaired in Muslim style with a dome added to its peak. It would stand for a few hundred years until 2 more earthquakes sent the tower into the sea. Its remnants were discovered at the bottom of the Mediterranean in the 20th century. Number 6. Whitn Australia. The U.S. isn't the only nation that lost towns to mining disasters. The town of Whitn once sat 880 miles northeast of Perth, Australia.
The Pilbara town was built for asbestos mine workers. Small-scale mining was started by Tycoon Lang Hancock in 1936.
Today, it's the home to the largest contaminated site in the Southern Hemisphere. Blue asbestos mining began in the area in the 1930s, culminating with the construction of a company mining town in 1947.
The deadly mineral gave thousands of workers and residents rare and often fatal diseases such as mesothelioma.
Whitn was Australia's sole source of blue asbestos, but by 1966, the mine stopped being profitable and was shut down. The asbestos-induced health problems remained. In 2006 to 2007, the town's official status was stripped, and roads to contaminated areas were closed.
We were called to a town meeting. We were told that the government had decided that they were going to close the town within 12 months, and we would all have to leave.
The town began its official closure in 2013. By 2022, the town's last 2 residents departed. Number 5. Aral Sea, between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. For most of recorded history, the Aral Sea was the 4th largest lake on Earth. In the 1930s, the Soviets started diverting water from the Aral to irrigate cotton fields.
Арал теңізінде құйып тұрған екі өзеннің суын ирригацияға есепсіз пайдалану салдарынан 1989 жылда.
Unfortunately, the irrigation projects weren't always sound, with much of the water getting lost. By the 1960s, water diversion projects caused the lake to shrink.
Содан кейін теңіз уже соқта теңіз 60 жылдан бастап теңіз кетіп жатыр ғой, оны ешкім білген жоқ. Последний раз 1977-78 жылдары.
Its reduction absolutely devastated the local fishing economy, destroying many towns situated on its shores. By 2007, the sea was a tenth of its original size.
Қазір мен тұрайын қаңырап ане заводтар тұр. Зданиялар бәрі дым жұмыс жоқ. Өліп қалған кәдімгі. Мертвая тишина дейді. Орысша айтқанда.
Today, the former eastern basin is known as the Aralkum Desert. The region is terribly polluted, causing massive public health issues. Former Secretary General of the UN called the shrinking of the Aral, quote, one of the planet's worst environmental disasters. Number 4. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia, Pennsylvania, once a sleepy coal town, now sits atop a perpetual conflagration. In 1962, as one story goes, an attempt to clean the town's landfill led to an intentional blaze.
They did what they did, they let it burn, thought it was out, but it was smoldering down in the lower depths of the garbage. And the fire spread from the garbage through an opening in the pit that went into this labyrinth of abandoned coal mines beneath the town.
The fire, unfortunately, spread to abandoned coal shafts beneath the town and have continued to burn for over 60 years. Even still, it took 3 decades for the town to fully evacuate.
By the late 70s, having failed to prevent the fire from spreading closer to the town, residents were warned that Centralia was unsafe. But most people stayed put.
The state bought all the real estate in the area in 1992 using eminent domain statutes, and it was all condemned. In 2013, 7 residents remained. They were allowed to remain until their deaths, at which point the rights to their land would revert to the government.
With Centralia, it was just finally a matter of money. What's going to cost more to dig this huge barrier and surround the coal or just buy everybody out? And so they decided to buy everybody out.
Today, Centralia is a ghost town, seemingly perched above a fiery gateway to hell. Number 3. Nimrud Iraq. Nimrud was an ancient Assyrian city in Upper Mesopotamia, founded over 3,000 years ago. Long after the fall of ancient Assyria, the ruins of the city stood. In the 1840s, archaeologists began excavating the city, discovering statues, palaces, temples, and a great ziggurat.
Back in 2001, Nimrud attracted archaeologists from around the world. The cuneiform inscriptions here are some of the earliest examples of writing anywhere.
Unfortunately, the city sits in modern-day Iraq, and in 2014, the Islamic State forces surrounded the ancient city.
Taking sledgehammers and bulldozers, they dismantle the building, finally attaching barrels of explosives, and then it all goes up in a cloud of dust.
As part of their campaign to destroy any relics or historical artifacts deemed un-Islamic or idolatrous, they blew up or bulldozed the entire area. The forces destroyed 90% of the excavated city, annihilating 3,000 years of history in just a few months.
For the ISIS militants, this site was not something to be cherished for its huge historical and archaeological significance. Instead, in their ultra-extremist view, this was a place of false idols, and therefore to be eradicated.
Number 2. Fukushima, Japan. In 2011, Fukushima Prefecture in Japan was hit by a massive earthquake. Unfortunately, Fukushima was home to a nuclear power plant, which suffered tremendous damage during the earthquake.
It caused a tsunami which killed more than 15,000 people and led to a meltdown at TEPCO's Daiichi nuclear power plant. Whole towns were washed off the map, leaving nothing behind.
Several reactors melted down, causing the first Level 7 nuclear disaster since Chernobyl, and one of the worst disasters to strike Japan since Nagasaki. The containment effort was frantic, and hundreds of thousands of residents were temporarily evacuated.
Public confidence in nuclear power collapsed.
No
The triple disaster of the earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear fallouts made a huge dent in the Japanese economy.
A large exclusion zone was created in the area. In the dozen years after the disaster, parts of the evacuation order were lifted bit by bit. But many towns which have lifted evacuation are still struggling with decontamination.
Upwards of 5,000 workers are here every day, innovating and orchestrating the most complicated, expensive nuclear cleanup in history.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. Pripyat, Ukraine. Founded in 1970, Pripyat, Ukraine was a boomtown of almost 50,000 by the end of 1985. It had over a dozen schools, a mega hospital campus, stores, cinemas, restaurants, even an amusement park. A year later, it was completely abandoned.
This is the city of Pripyat, 2 miles from the reactor. 30 years ago, the population was 50,000. Today, it is 0.
Pripyat was the closest town to the number 4 reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which suffered a horrific meltdown in 1986.
The disaster was sparked by massive explosions that tore the roof off of Chernobyl's reactor number 4, spewing radioactive dust into the atmosphere.
The entire town was swiftly evacuated. It's a piece of Soviet history frozen in time. Literally, all the clocks are stopped at 11:55, the precise moment that the power was cut. Today, nature has reclaimed Pripyat, with deer, elk, moose, boar, and others returned to the area.
A nuclear disaster is never over.
There will be areas that will be contaminated for thousands, if not millions of years.
Are there other sites of terrible disasters evacuated from our list? Let us know in the comments below.
It's hard to imagine. Just 40 years ago, this was a bustling fishing port.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.